शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् अपारकरुणासिन्धुं ज्ञानदं शान्तरूपिणं श्रीचन्द्रशेखरगुरुं प्रणमामि मुदान्वहं वागर्ताविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्तप्रतिपत्तये जगतपितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ. Hello everyone. Let's review Shloka number 7 in Soundarya Lahari. kvaṇatkāñchīdāmā karikalabhakumbhastananatā parikṣīṇā madhyē pariṇataśarachchandravadanā dhanurbāṇān pāśaṃ sṛṇimapi dadhānā karatalaiḥ purastādāstāṃ puramathiturāhōpuruṣikā. That is the 7th verse in Soundarya Lahari. Let's take a look at the meaning. Here, Devi is being referenced as puramathiturāhōpuruṣikā. Puramathitu can be split as pura and matituhu. Pura means cities, and this references the tripura, the 3 cities. Matituhu means destroyer. So puramatituhu means the destroyer of the 3 cities, which is Shiva as Tripurantaka. Aho Purushika means great pride. So Devi is being referenced as the great pride of Shiva. It is said that when Shiva was burning the Tripura, he smiled and burnt them all with a single smile. So he is called as Sirithu Puram Yerithon in Tamil. And why did Shiva smile? Because he has the power, he has Shakti with him, and he was proud of that power, and that's why he smiled. So she is the great pride of Shiva. And what is Acharya asking? He says, purastādāstāṃ naha. Purastad means in front of. Astam means to exist, to be present. In this context, it means appear. Naha means us. So he is asking Devi to appear in front of us. So he is asking for the direct vision of Devi. And when Devi appears, how will she look? kvaṇatkāñchīdāmā. Kvaṇat means tinkling. And Kanchi means a hip chain, a udyanam. Dama means a rope. So this particular hip chain has several pieces, each of which is a 3-layered golden thread with a bell in the center. So she's wearing a hip chain that has this kind of an arrangement. This is same as the Ranat Kinkini Mekhala in Lalitha Sahasranamam. karikalabhakumbhastananatā. Kalabha means an young elephant. Kumbha is the upper part of the elephant's head. So there is a bulge in the top portion of the elephant's head, right above its trunk. So that's the kumbha. Stana. Stana means bosom. So her bosom resembles the upper part of the elephant's head. So that means she is very well endowed. And how well endowed is she? Kari, that bosom is causing her. Kari means causing, and nata means to bend. So the weight of her bosom is causing her to lean forward. So she is really well endowed. Parikṣīṇā madhyē. Kshinam means something that's gone waste. In this context, very reduced or diminished. Parikṣīṇam means extremely reduced. So here that reference is slender. Madhyē means waist. So she has a slender waist. In Lalitha Sahasranamam, we have seen Sthanabhara Dalan Madhya Pattabandha Valitraya. So the 3 things that we have seen now, kvaṇatkāñchīdāmā, karikalabhakumbhastananatā and parikṣīṇā madhyē, represent the same. pariṇataśarachchandravadanā. Sharad means the autumn season. Chandra means moon. Vadana means face. Pariṇata means full or perfect. So her face is like the autumn full moon. So in autumn, the moon appears bigger and brighter. So she has that bright face. Dhanurbāṇān pāśaṃ sṛṇimapi dadhānā karatalaiḥ. So dadhānā means holding or bearing. Karatalaiḥ means the palm. So holding in her hands. What is she holding in her hands? Dhanuhu. Dhanu means bow. Bāṇam means arrows, and here bāṇān means multiple arrows. Bāṇam is an arrow, bāṇān means multiple arrows. Pāśaṃ is a rope, and sṛṇi is a goad. Api means and. So she is holding the bow, arrows, and rope and goad in her hands. So this particular verse is requesting for the divine vision, and it says, "Hey pride of the destroyer of Tripura, adorned with a hip chain of tinkling bells and golden threads, leaning forward due to the weight of your bosom, which is like the forehead of a young elephant, with a slender waist and a face like the autumn full moon, holding bow, arrows, rope, and goad in your hands, please appear in front of us." So that's what this particular verse is saying. Let's look at a story related to this particular verse. So in a city called Tiruvāmur, there lived a couple called Pugalanar and Madiniyar. So they had two children, Tilagavatiyar and Marulnikiyar. So Tilagavatiyar is the daughter and Marulnikiyar is the younger son. So Tilagavatiyar was betrothed to a military commander, and he had to go to the war before the marriage. While he was at war, both parents passed away, and then unfortunately Tilagavatiyar's betrothed also died in the battle after that. So now Tilagavatiyar wanted to end her life, but she did not want to leave her younger brother alone. So she decided to lead a saintly life, and she was devoted to Shiva, and she decided to bring up her only brother. So sister and brother were living like this, and Marulnikiyar was drawn to Jainism. And so he went and joined a Jain monastery, and there he became a monk, and he was called as Dharmasena. So now Tilagavatiyar was really sad hearing her brother's conversion to Jainism. So they all come from Tiruvāmur, and this is known for Shaivism, and for generations together they've been great devotees of Shiva. So she could not accept this, and she was always praying to Lord Shiva, and she said, somehow please bring him back. So the legend is that, Lord Shiva answered Tilagavatiyar's prayer. So what happened was that Marulnikiyar suddenly got an acute stomach pain. And no matter what he did, it was not cured. And he was in a Jain monastery where there are lots of healers. No matter what the healers tried, even then it was not cured. So finally, it became so difficult that he could not just continue his daily life and activities. And so he thought maybe his sister can help. So he came to his sister, fell at her feet and said, "Sister, please help me do something." And at that time, Tilagavatiyar gave him the sacred ash, the vibhuti, and asked him to smear it all over his body. And she said, "Go to the Shiva temple and chant the Om Namah Shivaya. Go do that." So then, when Marulnikiyar had come there, it was like early morning at that time. So the temple was just being opened. People were just getting in. So he also went. He put all this vibhuti all over him. And then he went and did a pradakshinam. He went and did a namaskaram, prostrated at the feet of Shiva. And as he did that, suddenly he started to sing spontaneously a hymn. And it is called as Kootrayinavaru Padigam. So the Padigam is a set of 10 songs, a decade if you will. And so he started to spontaneously sing that. And as soon as he sang that, his pain was relieved instantly. And Marulnikiyar was amazed by this sudden cure. He had tried so much and nothing was working, and here he is just falling at the feet of Shiva and singing this song. His pain is gone. He was lost in bliss and he was rolling on the ground. And he was also wondering whether he is even worthy of this compassion, right? He deserted the faith, and yet Shiva showed him his grace. So, as he was thinking about all of this, suddenly a voice was heard from the sky, where he heard, you've sung a really glorious hymn, and so from now on, you will be known as Navukarasar. Navu means tongue, and Arasar means king. So, he was going to be called as a king of speech. So, now Tirunavukarasar is steadfast in his faith or belief in Shiva, and so every day he used to sing hymns for the god, and he dedicated himself to the service of God. And so, especially what he would do is in the temple compound, whatever weeds are there, he would go remove all of that. So, it is called as Ulavarapani. So, he dedicated himself to that. But the news of his conversion back to Saivism reached all the Jain leaders, and they were not very happy about it. So they were feeling like their reputation was at stake, because they're all known as great healers. So if somebody could not be healed and they converted to Shaivism, they felt like that impacted their reputation. And additionally, they had converted the Pallava king into Jainism. So they were very worried that if more people heard about this, then they may not believe in Jainism anymore. Therefore, Jainism itself could be under attack. So what they decided is, before anyone else goes and says anything to the king, let's go put out our version of the truth, so that way we can be safe. So they went to the king and they told him that this Dharmasena was a monk in our Jainist monastery. He pretended to be ill and he lied that his stomachache was not curable, and he just wanted to go live with his sister. Because of that, he betrayed the faith, and then he's now talking all ill about Jainism, etc. So, hearing this, the king was really upset, and he said, let go bring Dharmasena, let's investigate. And so the Jain leaders also said, yes, we not just should investigate, we should also punish him, so that nobody else has the courage to do something like this. So now the soldiers all went to Tirunavukarasar and they said, the king is calling you, you have to come. And at that time, Tirunavukarasar simply refused. And he sang this padigam that says, Namarkum kudiyallom namanayanjom. So basically what he was saying is, I'm not a subject of any king. I only answer to Shiva, and I'm not even afraid of death, meaning that then your king doesn't figure anywhere there, right? So he said that. So the soldiers understood it, but they all requested him, if you don't come and if you're not able to take you, then the king will punish us. So please come with us. And then Tirunavukarasar did not want to cause trouble for anybody. So he went with them, fully knowing that the king may punish. And so when they produced him in front of the king heard all about what Tirunavukarasar had said, and now he is really mad. And so he asked these Jain leaders, what should we do with this person? What should we do? And they're all supposed to be following the ahimsa path, but at that point, the fear and the jealousy, etc., is influencing them. So the Jain leaders say that let's throw him into a burning lime kiln. So it is called as sṛṇimapi. So immediately the soldiers all threw him into this lime kiln. They bolted the doors so that he can't come out, and they completely barricaded it, so there is no chance of him escaping. So they left him there in that burning thing. It was supposed it generates a lot of heat and it's very intense and nobody can survive that. So after 1 week, they opened it and they were expecting him to be fully burnt, and they were so surprised that he was alive and he had no injuries at all. And so at that time, Tirunavukarasar had sung this padigam called Masil Veenayum. மாசில் வீணையும் மாலை மதியமும் வீசு தென்றலும் வீங்கிளவேனிலும் மூசு வண்டரை பொய்கையும் போன்றதே ஈசன் எந்தை இணையடி நிழலே. What that means is, somebody who is in that burning lime kiln should have felt so much heat, but because of the protection that Shiva offered, he's saying everything that is very pleasant, like the moonlight in the evening, like the gentle breeze, and it's like the warmth of the spring with the pure sound of Veena. So he is able to recall all of that. So when Shiva is giving that protection, even the heat couldn't do anything to him. And then the Jain leaders were really upset. So they wanted to somehow harm him. So they mixed poison in his food. At that time, Tirunavukkarasar sang another padigam which says Nanjamudakku Vittar. So then the poison turned into good. It's called as Amudu is nectar. So it became something good and it did not work on him. So then they decided to put him in front of an elephant and let it charge him. So they put him there and the elephant was rushing at him. And at that time he sang another padigam where he said, Anjuvadu yadundrum illai, anja varuvadum illai. Meaning that he is not afraid of anything and he doesn't even know how to be afraid. Why? Because he has Shiva with him. And when he stood there without being afraid, the elephant actually did not harm him. It bowed to him and it left. So now they've tried all of this and nothing is able to harm him. So finally they decide that they will tie him to a big stone and throw him in the sea. So then they tied him and threw him in the sea. And at that time he sang this song, Kattrunai Pootiyor Kadalirpaichinum Natrunayavadu Namachivayave. So he was still praying. He was inside the water and he was singing this. And then with the grace of Shiva, he was able to safely come ashore. And then when the king saw all of this happening, he realized that this person is really blessed and has the grace of Shiva, and therefore he left him. He didn't do anything to him. And afterwards the Pallava king also turned into a Saivet. So then Tirunavukkarasar went about his regular thing and continued on his path of singing the hymns and doing all the Ulavarapani. And once he heard about Tirungyana Sambandar. So he is the child sage who was fed milk by Parvati herself. So once he heard about all of that, he became very eager to go see Tirungyana Sambandar. So when he went and saw, Tirungyana Sambandar respectfully called him as Appar. Appa in Tamil means father. So he called him Appar. Therefore, Tirunavukkarasar came to be known as Appar. And there was a great friendship between the child sage and the sage. So Tirungyana Sambandar is really a young boy, 5 years old like that. And Tirunavukkarasar is much older, but they were great friends. Once both of them went to Vedaranyam. It is also called as Thirumarai-kādu. So when both of them went, both Tirungyana Sambandar and Tirunavukkarasar are all Nayanmars. They are exemplary devotees of Shiva. So when two exemplary devotees of Shiva came to Vedaranyam, the people of Vedaranyam were really elated. So immediately they welcomed them with the Purna Kumbham and everything. So they went there and they took them to a Shiva temple that was there. And when they went to the Shiva temple, they saw that everybody was entering through a side entrance and the main gate was closed. So then they asked, why are you all going through the side entrance? And at that time, the people there said, this temple has this greatness of the 4 Vedas themselves coming here and worshipping Shiva. But after the Vedas worship, they locked and went. After that, nobody is able to open the door. All the people who are very well versed with Veda and all, they came and sang, but they are not able to open the door. That's why we are always using the side entrance. So immediately, Tirungyana Sambandar told Appar, why don't you sing a song so that the door can open? So Appar said, okay, if you say so, I will sing the song. And he started to sing a padigam. So now padigam is always 10 songs together. So he's finished all the 10 songs, but the door did not open. So if you see with all these Nayanmars, they are extremely powerful, especially Tirunavukkarasar, etc. When he sings one song itself, whatever is needed will happen. So we can see when he was thrown in the fire, he was thrown in the water, Shiva came. But now 10 songs are done, but then Shiva did not open. So now Appar is actually very worried, and he sings the 11th song, where he says, what, Shiva, you don't have any compassion, you become hard-hearted, and now I've sung all these songs, you have to open the door right now. So he says, Sarakka Tirapaminne. So when he says, open it immediately, then the door actually opens. And then everybody is so happy that the door is open. Now they are able to go through the main door, and they go inside, finish all the pujas, and they come back, and now the door has to be closed, right? So for that now, Tirungyana Sambandar sings a padigam. Now, when Tirunjana Sambandar starts to sing the Padigam, just within one song, the door closed. He finished all the 10, but with the first song itself, the door was closed. And then again, all those people were very happy because the door was opened and the door was closed. But when Appar came back to his matam, he was thinking, why did this happen this way? I had to sing 11 songs in order to have the door open. But when Samandar sang one song itself, the door got closed. So why did this happen? What mistake did I do? Did I do something wrong? And then he keeps on thinking about it. And then suddenly he realizes he did not, in all of this, consider what the will of Shiva was, right? Maybe Shiva did not want to open the door. And he did not open for the 10 songs. And Appar, through his Tamil, through the power of his speech, and through the power of his will, and got the compassion of Shiva and made the door open. So he really went against the will of Shiva. And if you see, Samandar was singing to close the door. And that probably was Shiva's will. And that's why as soon as he sang, it immediately happened. Sometimes we don't know why God is doing what he is doing, but you have to go along with the will. And Appar realizes that he had his own desire come in the way. And he did not align with Shiva's will. And he feels really bad. And with this thought itself, he fell asleep. And then as he was sleeping, he gets a dream in which there is a sage. And the sage is saying, come to Vaimur. So then Appar suddenly wakes up and he's not sure where he is supposed to go. But he has this feeling that somebody is asking him to come to Vaimur. So immediately he leaves from the matam and starts to go to Vaimur, where he starts to see the sage who came in his dream walking along the streets. Sometimes he's able to see him, sometimes he's not able to see him, but he is intent on following him. In the meantime, Tirunjana Sambandar was also in the same place, right? And he hears that Appar is going somewhere. And therefore, he also continues to follow and he sees Appar walking. So he follows Appar. So Appar is following this sage. And at one point, he goes into a temple and he disappears there. And Tirunjana Sambandar catches up with Appar. At that time, Appar says, he sings to Shiva and he says, you know what, without understanding your will, I asked to open the door, but now I have Tirunjana Sambandar who sang to close the door that was alongside your will. So now you have to give us your vision. You have to appear in front of us. You can't be hiding anymore. And as he is singing that, Tirunjana Sambandar spots that Shiva is dancing there. And so he immediately calls Appar and says, look there, Shiva is dancing. And then he's singing this padigam where he's saying, I can see that you're dancing, you're having the fire in your hand, and I see the Ganga coming from your jata, and then I see the feather that you have on your head, I see the flowers, and I see that you're holding a skull in your hand and you're dancing. So he is very elated to have this vision of Shiva, and both of them are really, really very happy. Then they continue with their service, etc. And then once Appar has this deep desire to go and see Shiva in Kailash. So he wants to go to Mount Kailash and see Shiva along with Parvati. So he goes to Mount Kailash and it's a very difficult trek, right? So he's walking day and night. And at one point, he's not able to walk anymore. His feet are all hurt, bruised terribly. Now he had no choice. He started to crawl on all fours. And then after a certain point, his knees are bruised, his palms are bruised, his hands are bruised. He has no more strength to go. And then now he's slithering towards the Kailash. And then at that point, his body is also bruised now. So a combination of all of this and several days of going like this, he's almost losing his consciousness and he's just fallen there. At that time, a sage comes and the sage says, what is the purpose of going like this and meeting Shiva? You've completely bruised, you're hurting yourself so much. Nobody can see Shiva in Kailasha, etc. So you go back. Don't do all of this, just go back. And at that point, hearing that speech, Appar stirs a little bit. He regains his consciousness and he's saying, no matter what, how much ever I may be bruised, I'm going to go see Shiva in Kailasham. Nobody can stop that. I've made up my mind. I want to see him. This is my greatest desire. So when he says that, suddenly the sage vanishes, but he hears a voice that says, go take a dip in the pond nearby and you will get what you desire. So immediately Appar goes and takes a dip in that pond, and he gets up out of the pond and he realizes that all his bruises have gone. He's become totally fine, and to his greatest surprise, he dipped in a pond in near Kailash, and he woke up in Tiruvallur in southern India. And he is actually completely stunned. He doesn't know how he came here. And then he's looking at the temple in Tiruvallur. The temple that stood before Appar was the mountain of Kailash. And it was not just the mountain of Kailash. He saw Vishnu, Brahma, Indra, everybody worshipping Shiva. There is all the sounds of the Vedic chants, and then he saw the sages, the Siddhas, the Vidyadharas, the Yakshas, the Rishis. They're all there in groups. And then he heard all the hymns that are sung by all the celestial beings. It was so loud, it was even louder than the sound of the sea. And then he saw Ganges, and she came and worshipped in front of Shiva. And then he saw Nandi, who was standing there. And he saw all of this and was already elated. And the height of it was that amidst all of this, there was Shiva along with Parvati, who's seated to his left, and both of them were seen. And once Appar saw this, he just could not imagine. He was so overwhelmed. He raised his hands to his head. He fell to the ground. He worshipped. He cried. He sang. He danced. There was tears in the process. And it was just something that nobody can explain. So he sang this padigam where he says, Tirupadam kandén, kandariyadana kandén. So it is something that nobody has ever seen, that kind of a darshan that he had. And that's what Appar felt at that moment. And he had the direct vision of Shiva and Shakti in Tiruvallur, right where he was. So it is said that in the evolution of a soul from ignorance to ultimate realization, it is said to be a tenfold path, and there are a series of stages. It is called as Dashakaryam. The journey actually starts with Tattva-rūpam, then Tattva-darisanam, and Tattva-suddhi. So here there is an understanding of the principles of reality, the effect of Maya, and the mind starts to become pure, or purification of the mind. Then comes Atma-rūpam, Atma-darshanam, and Atma-suddhi. So here in these stages, there is an awareness of self, and that self is connected to the ultimate reality and transcending the ego. So at that point, when someone transcends the ego, they reach a state where there is no more me, mine, pride in my actions, etc. Only when ego is transcended, true realization begins. And so the next stage would be Shiva Rupam, where there is a very clear understanding that Shiva, through his 5 functions, cleanses the soul of the impurities and bestows liberation, which then leads to Shiva Darshanam, which is the direct vision or realization of the true essence of Shiva. And the last 2 stages are the Shiva Yoga and Shiva Bhoga, which is a state of spiritual union with Shiva through deep meditation, and the final union with the Shiva himself. So, for true realization to begin, first the ego must have been let go. And the ego is the Vishnu Granthi, that is near the Manipura chakra, near the navel. So, only when the Vishnu Granthi is cut, then the person can start to begin the realization. So, that's why if you see in this verse, it begins with the waist, kvaṇatkāñchīdāmā, that the hip chain is tied there around the waist. So that means the person is reaching that stage of Atma Shuddhi, where they begin to get to the Shiva Rupam, right? And the Shiva Rupam is the understanding of the 5 functions. If you see, this starts at the waist and it talks about the bell in her hip chain. The bell represents the sound, which is the origin of all creation. Then the hip chain is worn near the womb, right? Womb is the source of the universe. So that represents the first function of the divine, which is creation. And then if you see, it talks about a well-endowed bosom, right? Karikalabhakumbhastananatā. The well-endowed bosom represents the second function of divine, which is sustenance. So just like a mother nourishes her child through her milk, she nourishes the entire universe. So that is the second function. And then it talks about a slender waist. The slender waist always represents Kundalini. So when Kundalini is dormant, the individual is under the effect of Maya. So that means concealing. And then the face like the full moon in autumn represents the revealing of truth. Because in autumn, the time between the sunset and moonrise is really very short. So there is a continuous presence of light in autumn. That's why the harvest moon is something that people really like, the farmers really like. So the light represents knowledge, that represents revealing. Concealing and revealing together are called as tirodhanam, and that is the third function of the divine. So then if you see, in her upper left hand, she bears the noose. And the noose actually represents all our self-centered desires. In her upper right hand, she bears the goad, and which represents all the anger and resentment we feel when things don't go our way. So both the desire and the anger and resentment both actually lead to the expansion of ahankara, ahambhavam. So it's all about us, or the identity or the ego that we have built. And because of this ahankara, what happens? We always feel that we are in here in this body interacting with the world out there. So that is the subject-object differentiation that happens. And this Maya prevents us from seeing that nothing exists outside of us, right? But instead what we do, we always put all our senses out into the world, and we think that fulfillment will come from outside into us, right? So now with her pāśaṃ and angusham, what she does is she destroys that ahankara, the desires and the hatred. Both are one and the same. Desire and hatred are not different. They are the same. She eliminates or dissolves all of those, which is the fourth function, and then allows us to move towards liberation, which comes with the deeply understanding the true nature of the reality, which is the universal I. So that is the fifth function of grace or anugraham, and that allows one to understand the universal I, and that's what Puruṣikā represents. So Acharya here is giving a rupam, which is the understanding of the five functions and understanding the true nature of that reality. And generally, we talk about, whenever we say Adi Shankaracharya, it's all about Advaitam, non-duality. But in order to realize that non-duality, simple human beings like us will need to go through duality into non-duality. That's why he's giving a rupam here, and he's describing a form. And for some of us who are very new to all of this, we need a form in order to catch and go with it. And Acharya here is compassionately asking Devi to reveal her form to us. He's saying Naha, not Mama. So here he knows that he knows all of this, and he wants that grace for all of us, and therefore he is requesting Devi to reveal for all of us. That's all for today.